3 minutes on to the well, gone past the hour of 11 o'clock. Good morning to you, Grenada, Carriacou, Martinique. The rest of the Eastern Caribbean, and to you wherever you are. It is Monday, not Monday, it is Wednesday. It is the 23rd day of the month of October, the month that is literally speeding away. And I want to invite you to the mid-morning buzz. I'm back with you. We won this morning. This morning I want to say thanks and welcome to the studio, Father Ronald Holder. And this morning we'll be talking about an event that has become part of the cultural landscape, spiritual landscape, and everything else that we've known for the last 19 years. It's a prayer breakfast that's organized by the St. Michael's Roman Catholic Church. And certainly, while we invite you, I think, Father, the event has become so well known that by now people should start thinking, oh, here we are. Let's get ready for another prayer breakfast. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. And I have
ready to commit your sins, to speak of your sins.
Father, they're going to tell you about my sins, and trust me, yeah, there'll be too much to reveal.
Oh wow! I can spend the whole day. Not a problem.
The other day I was having a conversation. I was saying to somebody, I don't know if you remember that movie with Jack Nicholson when they asked, he said, "You want the truth? You can't handle the truth." So let's not go there. He says, "You really want the truth? You can't handle it." But the one thing we can speak about that there wouldn't be any agitation, any reservations about.
Yes.
We'll see that God is good.
Correct.
His
Very much
mercies,
so.
they last forever.
And not just he's good, he's loving. He's very loving.
Indeed.
He's a caring God.
And then we can remind ourselves that the 19th annual prayer breakfast is literally hours away.
Correct.
Excitement in the air?
Correct. Indeed it is. It's an opportunity for us to have this once again as we continue to lift up Grenada and the world in the context of all that's happening. Prayer is that conversation, that dialogue we need to have with God. And what a wonderful opportunity to have it, not just in the context of, praying that, yes, you're talking to God, but at the same time, an opportunity to be able to have it around a meal and, with others gathered. So where two or three are gathered, we are truly talking to and connecting with God.
It's interesting that you said that, because I know a lot of individuals, when they hear prayer, they think of this sanctimonious position where you go tucked away in a corner and kneel behind a bench, hiding away from the world, and it has to be locked in. And they ask you prayer at breakfast, and you start wondering, and I always say, Christ fed the multiples. He fed the multitudes, that is. So you can appreciate the need, and it only shows that relationship building process with God, it allows for coming together.
Exactly. And that's why, as the Lord says, where two or three are gathered, I am especially there. So that as we pray together and as we pray genuinely, because we can have a situation where you're praying but just praying from your lips, whereas we're praying from lips and heart, and all of us praying together, then we can move mountains.
And part of our Christian life is about being able to appreciate coming together with our brothers and our sisters.
Correct.
It's an integral part of Christendom.
Correct. Because, again, that's what the Lord is asking of us. Yes, we are invited to pray individually in the context of a direct connect to God. But at the same time, it's also, I tend to link it to the cross. If we understand the cross in the context of the vertical, right? God and us, and our relationship to one another. All right, that's what the cross signifies in that sense.
Well, it's interesting. 19th year, so it has been around for a while. Prayer breakfast on Friday set the stage for me as to what we can expect as we.
Well, I can tell you first and foremost, good food. So you can't go bad without good food. Let
me make sure that I understand. Because Father, you might be saying good food, and next thing I hear you stand. Is there going to be fried bacon saltfish sauce?
Yes, fried bakes and saltfish sauce.
That's going to be
cuckoo.
Fried cuckoo.
Fried cuckoo, right.
Cuckoo that is made from local hats.
Correct,
local
wonderful,
corn.
yes.
Okay, I'm in. And a good and some good bush tea, and some good bush lemongrass or big time.
All just as you keep talking, just keep talking. Right, there's baked chicken, there's fish, there's lamb, there's saltfish and smoked herring sauce, there's sausages, there's ham, there's fish cakes, there's red beans, there's carrots, there's bread rolls, bakes, cuckoo. I mean, I can just keep going on.
You guys open a restaurant.
So it's there's that. There is we have a speaker in the person of Father Raymond Inadi. He is from Nigeria. He's studying presently at SGU medicine, and at the same time he assists at the Cathedral Parish in doing masses, and so he's going to be speaking to us this Friday. Yeah.
Under the theme, journeying as the people of God in faith,
correct,
hope, which we need now.
Oh yes, indeed, yes, yes.
Love.
In fact, next year the Holy Father has declared next year, 2025, as the year of hope. Because we need hope in the midst of all that's happening right now. We definitely need hope. So yeah.
Well, folks, you've heard of it. You're making the event. But what's your assessment? What has the response been over the years to the event?
It's growing. That's the wonderful thing about it. It's growing. I think people are looking forward to something like this. I was thinking about it this morning because when I think back to 41 years ago, when around this time everything was just in a sense under lock and key in that sense, and everybody was wondering, well, what next and what's going to happen, and to think of what happened on Friday the 25th in the context of that freedom or release. I know some will call it intervention, right? And some will call it invasion, but however you look at it, at the end of the day, when you think of what happened on the 4th and the 19th and then what happened on the 25th, between that time, I mean, it was like, everybody was just sort of like, what next? What's going to happen? So I think having it on the 25th is an opportunity to thank God for the multiplicity of blessings He's poured out on us, not just in the context of what happened on the 25th, but also in the context of the fact that, look, we just had a hurricane, and it could have been worse for us in this part of the island. I mean, yes, it was bad for Carriacou and Petit Martinique and the Grenadine Islands, and we have to keep praying for them and praying that they will, recover quickly, as well as for the northern part of Grenada. But for us in the south, I mean, at least for many of us, we escaped. So we, there's so much to thank God for. Yeah.
And just the opportunity on a daily basis, because He encouraged us and reminded that our faith should be renewed daily. That by itself, the fact that we are alive.
Correct.
Let's forget everything else. On the day you wake up, it's enough of a reason to say
thank you.
Thank you. Let me go have some breakfast now.
At the same time, it's also a reminder that it's not just about thanking God for life, but also praying, because today's gospel reading in the Catholic Church for us, it is about being ready, because God can come at any moment and any second, right? And so at the end of the day, it's always being prepared, being ready for whenever He comes.
It's for a good causes, isn't it? Because places are also, I know sometimes we become so skeptical about God knows the wrong side of things. Me, I went last year, I went the year before, and they're telling Belma, I didn't know what to do with my money. Let me hold it and buy a car. And this one,
none of the above.
It is for
none of the above. It is the building of a parish hall, and a parish hall not just for the parish hall's sake of parish hall, but we want to make it into a multiplicity center, providing education for the area, the community of Woburn and surrounding communities, providing health facilities, so it's a holistic center we're looking at trying to build for the Woburn and surrounding communities.
Which, in fact, is the Great Commission, that when He says to you that you should go forth.
Correct.
I don't think some people really understand what it means. Sometimes we think we are good Christian, and I know Belma, for example, he thinks she's a good Christian. She goes to church every Sunday. And he's probably saying, Joe, boy, Papa, boy, Joe. But it allows us to understand the needs of the community and allow the membership to work to
I wonder, I'm going to make a statement that may sound strange, but church, yes, is about us coming together to support and build up each other, but church is not the end of it all. At the heart of it, Jesus sends us out to go and baptize in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and build His kingdom. And that's where the energy is. So our coming to church is only to give us the energy and the upliftment to be able to go out and do what is necessary.
I know some folks, they're so comfortable in who they are, that they assume that is, you know me, I'm saved, sanctified, and I'm sitting in my little corner waiting for Jesus, and I'm going to go home, and that's it. Not realizing.
And then when he asks, the question on Judgment Day, tell me, what did you do?
They start scratching their head. Well, hopefully when he asked that, they would say, well, I remember going to prayer breakfast this year.
We pray. Hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, but on the most serious side of things, I mean, it's interesting. I know some people, they might be then, they're saying, well, John Father seems to be laughing because, listen, relationships and friendship is an integral part of what Christianity is about.
And we are called to laugh. You know, I think God laughs at us so often it isn't funny. You know, we take this mindset of thinking of Christianity must be so solemn and so serious. No, God is laughing. It's about laughing and joyful and rejoicing. Yes, even in the midst of the suffering and pain, it's about being able to see, how can I see God in the midst of all of this?
I think the best way to put it often says that God has made us free moral agents. And that alone will say to you.
Correct.
But we've painted a picture historically that God is this big
white God with a white beard.
Lord of mercy. The very place I didn't want to go.
Looking that down. No, but I have to say this.
Waiting for
us.
us.
Yes, because there's this mindset where we've been taught that in a sense God is like big white God sitting on this throne with a long white beard looking down at us.
With his deep voice. Joseph, what have you done?
Exactly. God is spirit. God is spirit.
And
God is
us,
everywhere.
And He allows us to converse with Him. When you wake in the quiet in the early mornings or in the still of the night, it is okay that you start asking God. You talk with Him, converse with Him.
And He's with us wherever we are, even in our workspace and what we're doing. He's here with you in the context of you here, you know, talking to the people via the communication media. He is with us wherever we are. So it's not like He's locked into some particular space. God is with us, and it's therefore it's for us to be conscious of His presence and be open to His will.
I think one of the challenges that we get so used to hearing ourselves that we don't stop to listen.
Yeah.
For that small, still voice that speaks to us in the early hours of the morning.
Very much so. But you keep saying in the early hours of the morning. What about throughout the day?
No, I'm saying early hours when you wake up to come to prayer breakfast.
Okay.
I sometimes refer to the morning, and it's an excellent point that you make, because very often we think that we communicate with God just when we wake up in the morning. But the truth is, Father, and you would agree as we wrap, that our lives should become who we
constant
revelation of God.
Constant talking, constant, allowing Him to be. It's like He keeps calling us by name, Ronald, you know, do this, do that. You know, the angels are speaking into our ears, follow this path. You know, a lot of the times we want to go our path, but it's what you call freedom. The freedom to be able to say, well, okay, I can say yes to God or no to God. But that's
in fact, He has made us free moral agents, so you don't need Jesus' permission. You don't need to ask Him if you should go to prayer breakfast. He's made us free moral agents that we're going to decide collectively
that we are going to the prayer breakfast.
We are going to go to prayer breakfast.
And by coming to the prayer breakfast, not only are you going to be fed physically, you'll be fed spiritually.
Yeah. And it's going to be, of course, Father Raymond is going to be there to minister to our spirits.
Correct.
It is for a worthy cause. And there's also, because people normally ask, there's takeaway. So breakfast starts at 8 and goes until 11.
By 11.
Takeaway.
Starts about 8 as well,
I think 9 o'clock.
Starts at 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Right.
And I'm happy you've added that element to it, because somebody just wants to take away, they just wants to support.
And they go home, and while they're having their breakfast in the comfort of their homes, they also pray God, being listening, because we're going to have Catholic radio, right? Also publicizing the broadcasting the event. Yeah.
Well, the one thing I know people probably asking, how much is it going to cost, folks?
$45.
$45.
Yes.
For adults.
Yes.
And we have given.
And you know, $45 in this day and age is no money, in a sense.
Well, for that menu I've heard there, that sounds like a whole new retreat.
Exactly. Yes, Trade Center.
At the Trade Center.
Right.
And you've also considered children under the age of 12, $20.
Right. Yeah.
Let me just look at it, because what I'm liking, I'm hearing things that you don't normally hear of in regular
prayer breakfasts.
Okay. So, for example, red beans. And I'm liking the variety. Carrots. There's some people, they may not necessarily be into
vegetables and other things.
Some folks are very health conscious these days.
Yes.
Yeah, so you offer the fresh green garden salad, bread pudding.
Right.
Can I get to taste the bread pudding before?
We will see what we can do for you.
In case anybody decides to complain about the bread pudding on the day,
you would have tasted it and said, it's delicious, it's spectacular.
Want you to be able to say unequivocally, without any ambiguity, that bread pudding was
powerful. It was powerful.
Father Ronald, we remind you, team, the event, it happens this Friday, Thanksgiving.
Yes.
It is the 19th annual prayer breakfast that's been organized by the St. Michael's Roman Catholic Church. That's in Woburn. We all invited. Come out and be blessed. Tickets, $45. That's for adults. Children, $20. Yes? And reminding you, it's been done under the theme, journeying as people of God in faith, hope
and love.
Yes. If you have hope, but you don't love,
waste of time.
You're wasting.
You need all three of them.
Father,
blessings.
Indeed, it was a pleasure being with you, folks. All you need to figure out is what dandan you're going to wear, and for those of you who can't figure out what dandan you're going to wear, you're just going to drive in. Yes, we did say there is takeaway service. That happens. Mark the date. I know you may probably thinking there's other events that's happening on the day. That's fine. This is just early in the early morning.
Ours is the first of the events.
First of the events. Go get yourself some breakfast. A really, 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 really great breakfast. You can probably start planning the menu in your head. What do I want for my main course? Do I want baked chicken, fish, lamb, saltfish, or smoked herring sauce? Or there's an assortment of fresh fruits for your appetizer. Folks, this is not just a breakfast. This is an experience that
Wonderful.
you don't want to.
I love the words.
We leave that conversation there. We'll take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back as we go through the mid-morning buzz right here on a Wednesday.
Looking to take your business to new heights? Advertise with GBN on our social media platforms and get noticed by our 138,000 plus followers. Reach a massive engaged audience ready to connect with your brand. No matter your business size, GBN is here to help you grow. Contact us today at admin@gbn.gd or WhatsApp 407-8458 to get started.
Grenada, get ready to celebrate the magic of the season with Christmas with GBN. Starting November 4th, join us weekdays from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on GBN Television, K105 and Hot 98. Monday kicks off with traditional stories and wellness, featuring a storytelling session with Labukan Creative Center, giveaways, nutrition tips, and live calls to share your holiday wishes. On Tuesday, brings Craft Day with live and pre-recorded workshops guided by local artisans. Join us for more giveaways and connect through live calls. Wednesday features an outdoor production showcase, giving local sponsors a chance to shine from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. On Thursday, it highlights a local cuisine showcase at True Blue Bay Resort. And on Friday, it wraps up the week with live entertainment in our studio, showcasing local artists and more opportunities for live calls. Don't miss out on the joy and togetherness this holiday season. Celebrate with us on Christmas with GBN.
Hello, everybody. My name is Renee Goodwin, and I am the marketing manager here at True Blue Bay Resort. And I am so excited to invite you all to join us every Thursday on GBN, starting from November 7th, as we count down to the holiday season, right here at True Blue Bay Resort, Grenada's best family-friendly resort for visitors and locals.
Kalinago Beach Resort, Caswell Stationery Services, Real Value IG Supermarket, and Assistance Paints, proud partners of the 18th annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert, Saturday, October 26th, Grenada Trade Center, 7:30 p.m. A bottle for every occasion, Clark's Court offers a range of white, dark, flavored, and specialty rums. Grenada Distillers Limited, makers of Clark's Court, Grenada's #1 rum, proud partner of the 18th annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert. Saturday, October 26th, Grenada Trade Center, 7:30 p.m.
Well, welcome back to the program. It's 23 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. Again, we want to welcome you to the mid-morning buzz. Your boy JC here with you, and indeed it's always a pleasure being with you. Yeah, we just talked about prayer breakfast on Friday. You don't want to miss that. But then while you're having prayer breakfast, there's always a number of things you need to keep track of. Sustainable development goals, who we are as a people, where do we go from here? United Nations Day and all these other activities that we sometimes seem not to think about quite actively, but not realizing the impact it has on our lives. Because, of course, Ambassador Ken is here, and so and I want you to remember him. That's what I'm saying, Kennedy. Because, when we hear the term ambassador, we start thinking about some foreign person that they brought in from overseas, and you want to figure who this person is. His own local Ken is that's in here. And certainly while we're here, I know for a fact that his immediate family, they are locked in somewhere. I know that for a fact. Good morning to my dear sister. How are you? How's my brother? I hope you guys are doing fine. And that's the one thing I like with the family. They support each other. Mm-hmm. And in the midst of it, there's a lady that keeps all of these conversations together. Lady Fiona Sandy, you're here with us. United Nations Day is just around the corner. And certainly as a people, we need to be able to appreciate first the role of the UN and all its other umbrella organizations and what they do to keep us alive, keep us going as a people. So let's first put that into context, and then we'll branch off to sort of the sustainable goals and what is an ambassador is doing to make sure that we realize them.
Okay, good morning to all of your viewers. And again, thanks for the invitation to be here today. United Nations Day, actually, every year it's on the 24th of October. So tomorrow we have United Nations Day. And really, of course, we say this every year, but how it has come about at the close of the Second World War, 1945, a lot of ruin in the world. Mm-hmm. And how do we prevent or try to prevent this from happening again? How do we improve livelihoods, economic development, social development, and so on. So this is where the UN, this is the basis for the development of the United Nations. Really to maintain the principles of international peace and security, equality, international cooperation, and really harmonize on those issues that we have a common understanding and agreement of. So this year is 79 years since the launch of the United Nations. Grenada is celebrating its 50th anniversary. Grenada became a member of the United Nations in 1974, a few months after it gained independence.
Right.
So we're trying to do something a little bit different this year for our 50th anniversary. Now, when I say I'm talking Grenada, I'm talking UN, because I am Grenadian, and so on. So all of the entities will come together. The United Nations agencies and entities will come together. We'll have booths. We'll be at the Youth Center from 8:30 to 11:30 tomorrow. At our booths, you can come and find out a little bit about what the different agencies do. So in Grenada, we have FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization. We have UNDP. We have WFP, which does a lot with, social protection and food security. FAO does some with food security as well. We have PAHO, WHO, UN Women, UNESCO, and UNFCCC, which is not an implementing agency, but it works towards achieving those climate promises, and so that works with all of the governments to achieve those climate promises.
And I'm happy that you've been able to highlight some of those, the working arms of the UN, because very often, if you ask the average person to hear UN, they just go, the brain shuts down. And they think, listen, this is just a group of these elite fellas that meets once in a while when you hear the big boys meet in the U.S. And it has nothing to do with our livelihoods in Grenada. I cannot be bothered. But, Ambassador, that is the furthest thing from the truth, isn't it?
Definitely, and thank you, JC, again, and to your listeners, hello. The United Nations is an integral part of all aspects of our lives. They're the global agency that all countries of the world are members of, and they come together, yes, at the UN General Assembly every year and discuss issues. However, as you rightly say, how are these global issues, global goals and targets, how relevant are they to the community that we live in, to the lives of the people at the ground level? And that is where we now have to try and ensure that the work of the UN is collaborated, is done in a manner in the interest of the entire country rather than done in silos. We have to ensure that, especially in small countries like ours, that the human resources can be enhanced through collaboration with these agencies and our skills and talents developed. And how do we take these goals, and in the case of the Sustainable Development Goals, how do we take these 17 global goals and let it make sense to Grenada? And this is where we're trying to strengthen the structure. We're trying to monitor things a bit more. We're trying to collect more data, because if you really want to measure something, you have to have data to measure it. And we're trying to be able to report more on what Grenada is doing in terms of the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Share with us what are some of those goals and how it really and truly, how it affects our lives or can impact our lives.
Well, I should tell you that the SDGs, the time frame for implementation is 2015 to 2030. Right. So we have passed the midway point. The SDGs were built upon the framework of the Millennium Development Goals, which we had from 2000 to 2015. And I'm sure right now the UN is thinking of what do we call 2030 to 2045, because look out, there's going to be some global approach to continuing the sustainable development track. So goal number 1 is ending poverty. Number 2 is looking at food security, 0 hunger. 3 is health. So education is 4. Climate action is 13. Water, life on land, life in the sea, collaboration. So the 17 goals look at almost all aspects of our lives. Mm-hmm. And the focus is leaving no one behind, ensuring that human development is at the center of the implementation of the goals. Whatever we do should create an impact on improving the quality of lives. Mm-hmm. So whether it's the infrastructure, so there are a lot of things that are linked to these 17 goals, and Grenada is at the point now where we have just done a review. A local consultant has just done a review, and we're coming up with some plans to really strengthen the implementation, because globally, especially as a result of COVID, the UN, when we met, we agreed that the world has been lagging behind in the implementation of the SDGs. So we need more education, more involvement of the private sector, the non-governmental sector, to collaborate with government in ensuring that these 17 goals make a difference into the lives of the people. And the main issue now is the whole issue of how do we finance all these plans, because no matter how many plans you come up with and ideas, if you don't have the financing. So at the UN General Assembly last month, the multilateral institutions, the financial institutions, the World Bank, IMF, all these financial institutions, they were saying now they have to collaborate and assist countries in implementing the SDGs. So there's a big drive now in pulling together programs and plans, and they're having a major conference on development and finance and development conference next year, June, where countries are expected not to come and hear pledges, but get concrete support to achieve the goals.
So if I can just add a little bit to that. Now, it's not that the Millennium Development Goals wasn't achieving or hadn't achieved, but it came to an end, the period, and the idea was how do we consolidate this more, and how do we create that path of sustainability?
Right.
Because you can achieve a lot of things, but how do you keep it sustained? And this is where the Sustainable Development Goals has come out. How do we end poverty? How do we improve primary health care, open access and affordable education? Now, on that note, we have to remember that the Sustainable Development Goals are built on a human rights principle of leave no one behind.
Right.
And Grenada is doing quite a lot in terms of disability inclusion right now. The UN is supporting in part, and then there are other international entities that they are supporting. So the Ministry of Social Development is working to make sure we are not leaving anyone behind, and disability is one of those areas that is forefront on their agenda.
And certainly that must be part of the conversation, because in any developing country, you want to be able to bring us on par with what's happening with the outside world.
100%.
I mean, when we talk about the world being a global village, years ago, what if you, let's say you talked about, let's say, going to the US, that used to seem as though it took you forever. If you had to go to, let's say, somewhere in Africa, that seemed like, oh, me go Africa. The other day, somebody who was actually really laughing, I've been going to Samoa, and all of a sudden you start thinking, what? These are places the Queen is actually visiting there, and you're thinking, but these are places you heard about in the story when you watch on TV. You have the Samoan Islands and all these places, and all of a sudden you start thinking, wow, the world is no longer them over there abstract, and we are here.
It's real.
It is for real, Fiona. It is real. It's real ambassador.
And that is why the UN is promoting a more social protection among the population. So, for example, our social protection agencies, or NIS, how can we look at the role of NIS in making the concept of social protection broader? So for years there's been discussion, should NIS record and register and give a NIS number to a child on the day it was born, so that you don't have to wait till you start to work to get an NIS number.
Right.
So can NIS be our social security institution that we can look at all these social protection programs and the social development? Can they be incorporated into our NIS? But of course, the whole financial thing had to be looked at. But the concept of social protection has to be given a lot, and is currently being given a lot more priority.
And if I can go back to something that you mentioned about those countries that seem far out there and the UN seeming far out there, this is actually one of the key reasons for United Nations reform that has put me in country as the country coordination officer.
Right.
It was explicit. We have one of me, so to speak, across the Eastern Caribbean, because we have a multi-country office. The hub is in Barbados. How do you reach? So most of the heads of agencies and a lot of the activities take place in Barbados. How do you reach the persons in the other islands, on the ground, in the communities, the governments? And it's, let's bring the UN to them. And since I have been here, we've had quite a few engagements with heads of agencies coming here to have large-scale forums and forums, I don't know what we use these days, and things like that. So this is one of the elements of UN reform, and to have a focal point in country for the UN for SDGs, which is me, and I work very closely with Ambassador Roberts, which the Ministry of Foreign Affairs ensured that we had this ambassador to focus on reaching people, the liaising with the United Nations. So he's always involved in our SDG activities and so on. Tomorrow, a huge chunk of the program will be on SDGs. We'll have planning officers, technical persons from within the government, because we usually do this in engagement with government. So we'll have technical persons who are going to speak a little bit about the work that they do and how it is contributing to meeting the SDGs. Ambassador Roberts is going to speak a little bit about, public ownership and how important it is to have public ownership of the goals. Otherwise, what are we really doing? Right. And I have a question, if I may. Now, persons, this is not a call-in program, right?
No, it isn't.
So tomorrow, when you come, this is for the listening public. Tomorrow, when you come to United Nations Day, I'm not saying if, I'm saying when, because we expect to see you there. I have a question. You can research it now. Which of the Sustainable Development Goals specifically mention persons with disabilities? You come with that answer tomorrow, and I have a lovely Sustainable Development Goal
mug.
mug tumbler for you. It keeps hot, it keeps cold very well.
Wow.
Do your research.
JC, we start at 8:30.
I want to get a crack at it tomorrow, but you have to promise me that's going to have something like a nice, probably local porridge in it.
I'll work on that just for you. If you win, I'll work on that.
You know, even if that happened, the person they would say, yeah, they planned the whole thing. They planned it. But while we're here, though, let's talk about central to the conversation of realizing those sustainable goals is being able to get through to the next generation. And I think we talked about that. They were the Millennium Goals. We got to that point, sustainable goals. And to carry it on so that the information transcends throughout all generations. The children is critical, a critical component. What have we done and what are we doing on the ground to ensure that the next generation is totally, they understand what is it really older ones have been doing and how they can improve.
Right. So we have a lot of work to do. I'm going to admit that. But what we did do last year, and year before, I collaborated with GBN, and we had a morning quiz. Was it last year or year before? Last year, I think. We had a morning quiz, and early in the morning, students are home, and I'm asking questions, you answer, and you get a prize. So we had that. But we've also had a national, and I'm saying national because we got inputs from outside of Grenada. I think we went as far as Vancouver. We got something from Vancouver. But we had a national competition, art and essay competition. Because, again, we want to be inclusive. We're not going to say write. We're saying write, draw, paint, and we extended it to the schools for special education, inclusive education, so we had that competition, and we gave them a theme, and on the sustainable development goals, and we looked at the depiction, we looked at the essays, they were quite good, and we started from primary school and came up to secondary school. Well, we gave an age, not really school, which I think ended at 16 or 18 or something like that.
Ambassador, I'm going to throw a question at you, because I know whenever it comes to these international agencies, there's always going to be the conspiracy theories. We've heard a lot regarding the role and function of the UN. Some people seem to think this is just an organization that is just there to control our lives and tell us what to do, what not to do, and control small developing countries so that we can conform to their way of life. What would be your response to those individuals out there?
What I've grown to realize, JC, is that the more involved you get into the work of these organizations, the more the country can benefit from the resources available. Now, by engaging and building relationships with people from UNDP and FAO and so on, they would recognize the interests that you have, and that is where they will support you in developing projects and seeking the funding and so on. So if we are not engaged and we just go to a meeting once a year and just to give somebody a trip, then you would not feel the impact. But what we are doing now, and what the UN has done, is to bring the UN closer to the country level. With the Sustainable Development Goals, we acknowledge that we're past midway. And the reality is Grenada did not really maximize the putting a structure in place and looking at these goals, meeting with the people out there, participating in the background work that would lead to the meetings, and then get resources for the country. We are now trying to put a structure in place. We have to recognize that the role of the private sector and the non-governmental sector is critical in nation building. The more you have small business developing out there, the better it is for the country. So we're recognizing there are resources out there. And especially as we get closer to 2030, you will see the demand for more projects, because the world is saying it, that we are not implementing as fast as we should. So if Grenada can prepare our projects, and one of the big things that is trending now, they're telling you clearly, when you're developing a project, you should not have a consultant sitting in an office and writing something that sounds nice. You need to go to communities. You need to speak with people. You need to engage them. So, for example, through Ambassador Joseph in our embassy in Brussels, we're currently developing a project looking at water and in the agriculture and fisheries sector in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, with the first emphasis on Carriacou and Petit Martinique. And last month, the team went and we had meeting with the farmers and so in St. Patrick, in St. Andrew, in St. George. We went to Carriacou and Petit Martinique. And when you listen, and not just listen, put them into groups, let them talk among themselves, and you hear the issues coming from the community, that is when you can develop a project that you will get funding easily. So we are in the process now of doing a lot of that and trying to engage the community. And over the next year, you will be hearing about more consultation, because unless you listen to the people in the community, unless you engage them, unless you're factual about the process, you can talk all the talk, you would not get resources. And we are trying to not get a little $1 million here and there, but get substantial resources that can really mitigate some of the problems you can have down the road.
I mean, it's interesting that we say that, and I deliberately ask you, because I know there are individuals out there whose brains is too big for their head. Yeah, I've heard the conversations, and then, because for instance, let's say UNESCO and all these different the Food and Agricultural Organization, we don't sometimes understand the role. For example, as a country, we start talking about food security. We just had World Food Day, and then we get to understand the relationship between what we do, how FAO is involved, and sometimes the relationship that these bigger organizations they serve with other organizations. So you may probably, for example, and just yesterday I clicked on, somebody sent me a link for a training opportunity for journalists and for those in broadcasting. And you did enough research. I clicked, and then I realized who popped up on it. The UN, through one of their agencies, they are the ones that is funding the whole conversation about freedom of speech and democracy. So it affects our lives. Sometimes we don't even know. Much. All we see is just the bread, but we don't see the people behind.
And you know what it is too, JC? I think maybe sometimes people don't understand how the United Nations work. The United Nations is not an entity that's separate from the governments that make up the United Nations. Right? Like, for instance, the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs is governed under UN General Assembly Resolution 70/1. The General Assembly is the 193 member states that make up the United Nations. So we are mobilized as United Nations by government's priority needs, and this is how we come out to support. Grenada has done a lot of work in gender equality and women's empowerment. You know, Spotlight. Right? And Spotlight is not the only one. And right now we have Build Back Equal under UN Women, which is again focused on women's empowerment. Why do you think all of this is happening? It's not only happening in Grenada, but all this is happening in Grenada. Spotlight, Grenada is the only Eastern Caribbean country that got these funds to go into Spotlight initiative. It's all over the world. Grenada is the only Eastern Caribbean, because we did a prevalence survey. Grenada, when I say we this time, Grenada did a prevalence survey. So the data was there in gender-based violence, and the need was glaring. And this is how Spotlight came in, and we got the funds. So the data is there. We try to work on evidence-based.
Right.
And this is, you understand? So this is where this is coming, or the governments would reach out and say this. Civil society, we tag with civil society as well. We look at where there are gaps in what some of the persons are doing. I know there's a UN entity that's working a lot with fishermen and livelihoods, and livelihoods, and try to close those gaps. I try to close gaps. So I might say, okay, we had this voluntary national review where Grenada went to the UN and said, this is where we're at with the SDGs. And they did their report. And I'm looking at the report and I'm sitting with the permanent secretaries and I'm saying, okay, I see ways where maybe my office, which is again not an implementing agency, but I can close gaps.
Right.
The resident coordinator's office can really maybe do the same consultancy that he spoke about, which is focused on SDG coordination, because private sector has data, civil society organizations have data. Right. I might get up every Saturday and start doing something that contributing to these goals. I have data. You know, UN is doing stuff. UN has data. And how we could coordinate nationally to bring everything together, make sure that the advancements that we are making are reflected accurately. So everything works together.
Sometimes some of us don't realize some of the benefits and privileges that we enjoy is as a direct spin-off from the UN. And the UN is not just about Grenada. It's global. And so then we benefit from it. You might hear of, let's say, something, and you see it all the time. There's some project that's been rolled out in Barbados, but Grenada is part of it, and Grenada gets its 2.2 million. Yeah, it's been rolled out in the Caymans. But as part of that regional conversation, Grenada benefits from it because we're part of this greater network.
Because another thing that I try to do too, because I'm Grenadian, I'm UN, but I'm also Grenadian, so I'm always looking out for Grenada conversations. Right. So if I know that there's something that's happening and it's something that I know I've seen either on Grenada's priority agenda or I've heard conversations, this is important. It's coming out of the VNR, it's coming out of some of the policy document, and I'm like, can we include Grenada? And I speak to the relevant permanent secretary ministry and I say we have an opportunity, because they may have mentioned one or two countries and maybe they may not have mentioned. I'll be like, we can include Grenada because this is also an issue there. They may not have noticed. This is always also an issue.
Climate change, and Grenada becomes a part of the bigger conversation. Ambassador, I looked at the clock because I was wondering. I looked at it if I should bring it up or not.
Bring it up.
Yeah,
bring it up.
Because climate action is a big thing, and we experienced Beryl in July, and the world has recognized. Look what's happening in the U.S. now, in Western Florida, all over the East Coast. You're seeing the impact of climate change. So next month, the world is coming together in Azerbaijan for the COP29, and again, the issue of climate change is taking the forefront. But this year, they're looking at it within the context of the other sectors. So climate change and human development, health education, climate change in agriculture and tourism. Right. And they're having different fora that will be discussing these things. But the thing is, a lot of background work has been done, so there are a lot of resolutions coming out of the COP that we have to tie up the negotiations, and so the team, some of us have been involved behind the scenes trying to assist in getting the final documents to reflect the needs of especially small island developing states. But climate change is a buzzword now.
And sometimes we hear about all these little communities. And there was a couple of years ago, there was this major project up in Gove in St. John, where they were dealing with restoring rivers. And what's his name? Ian was part of that. These things don't just happen in isolation.
Exactly.
It's somebody that's funding it. We just came off the heels of Beryl, and we saw funds being every week. Grenada gets this, Grenada gets that, because we are part of that international community that understands the challenge that we go through.
And that understands cooperation and collaboration. How do you move forward if you don't have that, really?
So the thing is about inclusion.
Yes.
It's about getting people involved and getting people to recognize that if we work together, if we plan, if we vision, if we document things, there are a lot of resources we can get out there. There are a lot of relationships we can build to ensure that not just Grenada, but the region benefits from all these programs, because there are a lot of regional programs that we are part of. So we just have to engage, let the people know what's going on at the local level, interact regionally, internationally, and
So we just to add to what Ambassador said, we do build on a lot of what's happening within regional organizations, and we work closely. So for instance, where it comes to disasters and that kind of thing, the United Nations Resident Coordinator co-hosts development partners meeting when there's a hurricane on the horizon with SEDIMA. So I have sat in meetings with Dr. Walters at the same time where, he'll probably be speaking about where they're at and what are their needs on the ground prior to, during, after. How can we support? And a lot of the work that we do with disasters right after hurricane is through SEDIMA. So it won't always be mentioned. We don't always mention it, but it'll be a part of teams that come in. WFP was on the ground a weekend before the hurricane hit.
See, the things that we're not aware of, but so what it takes though is for us just to be a little bit more open. So now we're just so myopic on a lot of issues. put in a vision, take up a wider view of things, and then we just realize that the things that we condemn and we castigate because of lack of knowledge, they're the very things that comes back to help us in our times of crisis. Fiona, Ambassador Roberts, it is always a pleasure. I'm watching the clock. I'm like, gee.
Time flies.
We need another hour.
I was wondering if I could ask my boss if we could forward the news.
We can't forward the news.
But
no way.
Tomorrow at the Youth Center,
You'll hear
from
more from
8:30
us.
to 11:30. Those who are interested can just come down. It's
Just
a
pass,
public
it's
open
open,
event.
yeah.
Come and hear a bit more about the UN agencies and the work they do in Grenada. And as Grenada celebrates its 50th anniversary, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary of being part of the UN, and we look forward to the next 50 years where we can really do a lot more.
And see how we can become part of that conversation of change.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Folks, this is
Thank
as
you.
far as we can take the conversation. As you can well appreciate, all good things must come to an end. But you know what? It sets up the anticipation that we'll do it at another place and time. You can either be here tomorrow in the studio or tomorrow. Did we say where that activity was?
Youth Center in
The Youth
Grandlands.
Center. You see what I'm talking about? Setting up the expectation of something better happening tomorrow. Yes? JC Loves You. We leave this here reminding you that at the top of the hour is the Luncheon Edition, a production of our News and Current Affairs Department, and will be presented by one of the lovely ladies within the newsroom. I kind of paused it while I wasn't sure which one was going to be presented, but either way, the Luncheon Edition comes up at the top of the hour, reminding you to live life, love life, treat each day as if it's your last day on planet Earth. And if you lived your life, you wake up and you realize you still haven't found fulfillment. Maybe you need to find out more about the UN and maybe you could start a conversation by being part of the activities tomorrow for UN Day. JC Loves You. Have a great one. Enjoy your lunch.